Welcome to this explainer on the epic history of life on Earth. To really grasp the sheer magnitude of this story, we actually can't start here on the ground. We have to zoom way, way out. Imagine pulling the camera back, past the clouds, past our solar system, and out into the vast, dark expanse of the cosmos. Because before there were cells, before dinosaurs roamed, and long before human beings were even a possibility, there was just the universe itself. To understand how life transformed over millions of years, we first have to wrap our heads around the unimaginable scale of where we actually come from.
And it's a scale that literally bends our perception of time. As this quote perfectly captures, when we look at stars on a clear night sky, we are, in a way, looking back in time. Seriously, think about that for a second. When you step outside tonight and look up at the twinkling sky, you aren't seeing those stars as they are right now. You are literally peering into the deep past. Because stellar distances are so massive, they're measured in light years. The light hitting your eye today started its journey millions, sometimes trillions of kilometers away, deep in the ancient history of the cosmos.
20 billion years. That is the estimated age of our universe, birthed from a singular, spectacular explosion known as the Big Bang. Now, a number like 20 billion is almost too massive for our brains to even process, right? But the Big Bang Theory tells us that the universe violently expanded from this explosion, and as it expanded, it began to cool. Gases like hydrogen and helium formed, eventually swirling and coalescing into the massive, glowing galaxies and star clusters we see today. Set against this colossal 20 billion year cinematic backdrop, our Earth is nothing more than a tiny, glowing speck. Yet it's on this very speck that the greatest story of survival and transformation ever told actually unfolded.
Let's move to Section 1. The rules of the game.
So how do we get from a cooling rock to the sheer variety of life today? Well, for a long time, humanity believed the Earth was only a few thousand years old and that living things just never changed. But when Charles Darwin sailed around the world, he made a game-changing realization. The living forms of today share deep, undeniable similarities with creatures that existed millions of years ago. The game of life is in constant restless motion, and the absolute driving force behind it, natural selection. It isn't random magic. It's a mechanism where nature actively selects those best adapted to survive. Imagine a wild, hostile environment where resources are super limited, so there's fierce competition. If an individual happens to be born with a slight variation, a tiny edge that lets them utilize resources better, they're the ones who survive to pass that trait on. It's a process driven by random mutations, sure, but nature's selection is a highly directed, unforgiving filter for survival.
Which brings us to Section 2, Clues in the Earth. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know all of this actually happened? Well, we can't rewind the clock, but the Earth has kept a majestic, cinematic record for us hidden deep within rock sediments. And when we examine both fossils and living anatomy, we see two beautifully different paths of evolution. On one hand, we have homologous structures. Think of these like variations of the exact same underlying blueprint, a shared ancestor adapted for entirely different jobs. But then, we have analogous structures, and this is where it gets wild. This is convergent evolution. The eye of an octopus and the eye of a mammal have completely different origins, no shared recent ancestor. But the shared challenge of needing to see in their environments drove nature to select a remarkably similar mechanical solution. It even happens in plants. A sweet potato is a root, and a regular potato is a stem. Different origins, but they evolved the exact same function, storing food.
This leads perfectly into Section 3, the phenomenon of adaptation.
Okay, this is where the story gets absolutely mind-blowing. When an organism branches out into different environments, incredible things happen, a process called adaptive radiation. Look at what happened with Australian marsupials, animals with pouches, and placental mammals in the rest of the world. They evolved amazingly similar forms entirely independently of one another. Why? Purely because they were adapting to similar ecological roles. So you end up with a placental wolf in one part of the world and a Tasmanian marsupial wolf in Australia that look astonishingly similar, despite being separated by vast oceans and millions of years of evolutionary history. Nature basically solved the same problem twice using completely different starting materials.
Let's pull the camera back again and look at the sheer cinematic timeline of all this. Around 500 million years ago, the oceans were just teeming with active invertebrates. By 350 million years ago, jawless fish took the stage. We even had robust fish with stout fins that would briefly drag themselves out of the water and onto land. Eventually, giant, awe-inspiring reptiles, the dinosaurs, dominated the Earth for millions of years. And then, about 65 million years ago, they just vanished. Poof.
Whether it was a cataclysmic asteroid impact or sudden, violent climatic shifts, their dramatic exit radically changed the world. That empty stage brings us to Section 4, the rise of mammals.
With the giant reptiles suddenly gone, the Earth was wide open for a new type of creature to step into the spotlight. Now, the fossils of the very first mammals show they were tiny, no bigger than small shrews. But they were smart, and they had a massive evolutionary superpower. They were viviparous. They protected their unborn young safely inside the mother's body. And get this, their evolutionary destinies were literally shaped by the shifting tectonic plates of the Earth itself. As continents drifted and violently crashed into each other, immense dramas played out. When South America joined North America, the North American animals migrated down and completely overrode the existing South American mammals. Meanwhile, Australia drifted away and remained totally isolated, which is exactly why its unique pouched mammals survived without getting wiped out by new competitors.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the evolution of us. This is arguably the climax of this entire explainer. Out of all the incredible stories of evolution, whales returning to the sea, horses galloping across plains, the story of human evolution is simply staggering. Around 15 million years ago, primates like Dryopithecus were more ape-like, walking much like modern gorillas. But then, profound anatomical shifts began to happen. Discoveries in places like Ethiopia and Tanzania revealed hominids starting to stand completely upright on two legs. This wasn't just a physical change. It was a critical shift that freed up our hands and fundamentally changed how we interacted with the world, setting the stage for the rapid evolution of the human brain.
The acceleration from that point forward is just wild. 2 million years ago, Australopithecines were out in the East African grasslands using stone weapons to hunt. Then Homo habilis emerges, the first true human-like hominid. Fast forward to the Neanderthals, living between 100,000 and 40,000 years ago, and we see them using animal hides for protection against the cold, and profoundly burying their dead. That's a massive hint to deep emotional complexity in culture. Modern Homo sapiens arose during the harsh, turbulent conditions of the Ice Age. By 18,000 years ago, our ancestors were leaving their mark with breathtaking prehistoric cave art. And just 10,000 years ago, which is practically yesterday in evolutionary terms, agriculture was born, sparking the beginning of modern human civilization as we know it.
So, wrapping up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really profound question. Is human self-consciousness the ultimate end result of natural selection, or just another step in the ongoing story of the universe? We've traced an epic, unimaginable journey from the cooling gases of the Big Bang through the dawn of cellular life, past the reign of dinosaurs, right up to our own uniquely self-conscious minds. In a way, we are the universe's way of thinking about itself. But remember, evolution is an ongoing process. The animate and inanimate world you see outside your window right now is just a snapshot of today's evolutionary success stories. The game hasn't stopped. We're just the current cast on stage. So, is our self-awareness the end of the epic, or is it just the beginning of a brand new chapter?